So let's get painting our lily. Now I shared with you how I transfer designs onto a canvas or the boards or whatever surface I'm using with graphite paper if I'm not going to just sketch it on with the paintbrush. Here is the picture that I'm going to use and refer to as I'm painting. So I need to get my paints on my palette, and I'll be back and we will get started. And I'm going to start with some just pure orange on my brush, and I'm just going to start by outlining a little bit my edges. It doesn't have to be perfect, just get it flowing there. I need to load my brush much more. It's pretty thick paint. And I'll refer back to my picture. From time to time. And I'm putting in kind of the front petals. Some of them will have a little bit lighter areas, like right here. So I dabbed into some sunflower. I didn't put that in the beginning of my list that I mentioned, and that's okay. You know now, and it'll be on the printed list. Sometimes I change my mind from time to time. I'm going to try to keep my head out of the camera. I usually have the surface lying down on the table, but I thought I would try to do it this way. That way I could stand up and see more of what I was doing. You see how that yellow is just kind of blending in there? It's exactly what you want. And there's more like a lighter area right here. Now this is just the beginning. We'll probably do a few layers. So don't sweat it if it's not perfect. If your brush is dragging a little bit, you can just touch it into a very tippy top brush into your water basin. I have my tub with the ribbed bottom. Yes, that's exactly what I want. I look back to my picture. This area right here has kind of got a highlight, so I'll put that in there. And over on that edge. And it gives them some striations. It's rather hot in my studio. We went from freezing cold to hot weather, and I can't really have my fan blowing because it'll dry out my paint too fast. With acrylics, that can be a problem. Not a problem, but just something you need to contend with. So I just barely touch my brush in a little bit of water to help it flow. And this is pure orange again, and a little sunflower that I have basing in. And just adding like a few highlights here and there where I see it on my photograph. Now these petals back here are to the back, and so they go underneath these petals. So this petal, and this petal is coming out from underneath these three petals. So I am going to get some of my orange poppy on one corner of my brush, and then orange, pure orange in the other, and just kind of blend them together. And then I'm going to bring that darker color along the edge there so that it's a little darker underneath. And I'll do the same. I'll reload my brush. I'm going to have to get some more orange on my thing, and I'm just going to go around this petal with the darker color to create some shadow there, and then just fill in. And you can just add a bit more to darken it along there. And then I kind of wipe off the orange, the orange poppy, and I'll go back and get some more orange, pure orange on my palette. Okay, I have more orange, pure orange on my palette. And now I'm going to get some more in there, and I'm going to finish filling in this. Now this has a little tiny curl there. That's going to be dark. So I'll come in with the corner of my brush, and I'll just touch that in there. It doesn't have to be perfect. You'll hear me say that a lot because I never paint perfect. I'm not into realism. We're going for an effect. And here I'm going to go into some, I had the sunflower yellow, but I remember I had told you I was going to use the vivid orange to highlight, and that works very well instead of the sunflower yellow, and I should have used it from the beginning. So we'll go back to using the vivid orange, and I'm just going to kind of fill in here. I'm going to go to this petal, and I'm going to scrape the extra paint off my brush. I'm not going to clean it. I'm just going to go double load with the orange poppy and the pure orange. And then I'm going to come along this petal. I'm going to look at, yes, this petal comes way over. This one has the stamens kind of in front of it. So this one really comes over too. So I'm going to come along here, along that edge with the darker color. I need more. It's not standing out. Darker, darker. Now not all of it has to be darker. And we will come back over this with another layer. But just kind of fill in with your orange. Is my palette being in the way? Hopefully not. I gotta keep an eye on things, because I don't have a helper. It's all me. So if I get my head or something in the camera, I don't know it until I go to edit. Okay. And I think I'll go ahead and pull this down a little bit further. The darker, the red, the orange poppy, I mean. And the same with this. I'm double loading again with my orange poppy and my pure orange. And I'm going to come right along this petal, and it comes underneath this one. So I'm reloading just with orange poppy because I had plenty of pure orange, and I'm just going to pull out along here where this petal's coming out from underneath that one, and then I'll just load with more orange. And there you have it. A little bit of shadowing there. Now these ones come into the center, so this one needs to come in more to the center. So I can still see my lines underneath there. I'm just going to go over this. I'm going to get a little bit more water on my brush because it's getting a dry edge along the edges, along here. But when you put in your background color, you're going to go over that a little bit. You're going to come right up to that. So don't sweat it if it's a little raggedy along there. I'm going to look at my picture. Down here is kind of deeper, darker. Not a lot, not as much as that, but it kind of gives it the center. Now this paint should still be wet. And mine, it's actually lighter too inside, but I want to get this depth in there. And then right along here, it's lighter. I want it to blend. It's not blending enough, so I'm going to add a little bit more orange and pull it in there. And then right here on the tip, a little touch of dark. And actually there's a little bit of a ribbing right here. Whoops, I didn't have enough of that orange poppy on it. And pull it right there. And there's actually a little bit of ribbing on this one. You don't want it too stark, it just kind of blends in. And this one needs a little more orange in it. You still have some red poppy or orange poppy on the brush, and that doesn't matter. I can go over it with the orange, pure orange. And I had a little bit, I'll leave that for texture. There's a little chunk of something in there, but I'll leave it. It's not that big of a deal. And I'm going to come along with the lighter color right along this edge, just so there's a lot of contrast between those two. And sometimes you go with feel. You just kind of feel something needs a little something, and you don't have to follow exactly what is on the picture. Adding a little bit of orange poppy, corner of my brush, and pulling it up from the center to kind of darken that center. Because the stamens really come up from there, they're going to kind of disguise some of this. But I'm getting the red poppy, or orange poppy, I mean, I want to say red because it's redder, on the corner of my brush, and I'm just kind of scooping it or dragging it into the petals from where the stamens will come from, right there. Now definitely this one needs some orange. And then there's a little spot right here that's brighter, so we're going to mix in some of that vivid orange. And the veining on that one, the center seam, is very faint. It comes right there. Only. Now let me see about this one. This one is too light here. It's just light there, so I'm going to give it some more orange. Got too much of the vivid orange on here. Now this one back here needs a little bit of highlight up on the top. It's a little too stark. Get some more orange and kind of blend over it. There we go. Perfect. And I'm going to go along here where it's rough. And along here where it's rough. Stand back from time to time and see what you think it needs. This needs to be smoothed out a little. Right along this edge it starts to turn, so I'm going to put some orange poppy. And then the vein on this one is pretty dramatic, so even though it's not real dark here, it will darken up some because acrylics darken as they dry. And then I'm just taking a good long look. I might get a little more orange poppy on my palette. I'm looking. I want to make sure that's good and visible. So that's a good one. This one doesn't have a seam. This one does. This one has one, goes like that. And that's looking pretty good. If there's any areas you think you need to darken or lighten, go right ahead. That's not blending in too well. There. Like I said, this isn't rocket science, so you don't need to overthink it. This edge can be lightened. I need to fix this little dark spot. So I went and got a number 12 flat, and I'm just going to kind of smooth that out a little bit. With that was with the orange poppy. And get a little bit more orange. This is just a little too bright over here for my taste. And I think it's still a little damp, so I'm just going to kind of blend in some pure orange. And that takes it down a notch, even though it's still brighter than the rest of it. If you think something needs more of a coat, go ahead, because the oranges are not very opaque, so sometimes it takes a few coats to get the finish you want. Sometimes less is more, so step back from time to time, or even walk away. Walk away, and then you can come back to it and see if it really needs anything else. Okay, I'm thinking that's pretty good. I may wish to darken this a little bit so it seems like the stamens are really coming out of a dark center, even though my photograph, it's very light down in the center, but for the effect of the painting, we're going to just kind of darken it. In that spot. And then the stamens are going to come out this way. And there we have the actual lily. I'm going to start with the freckles on the petals. Now I'm going to use a stylus. I will link to this in my supply list. So I have Licorice, Plaid FolkArt multi-surface, and this stylus. And I'm going to go in here. I want little tiny dots, so I'm making sure of my pressure and how much I have on here. And you don't want them to be uniform in size. And so less is more. I'm kind of looking at my painting. You don't want them to be uniform, all in a line. I always kind of tap it off of my palette to make sure of what I'm doing. See, this is kind of on the inside of that. And you can use less pressure, more pressure, and it does change the size of the freckles. Are we doing good in here? Let's see more. This is kind of going down into that. This I have kind of not in the way I want it, but it's going to fly. We are not going to sweat it. Hopefully I'm not pounding too hard on that. This one doesn't show any in my photograph, so then I'm going to come along here. Try not to touch the other dots I did. This just has a few little ones over there. And this one is along here, and a few along here. I'm stepping back and really looking at it, see what I think, and I'm okay with it. I think instead of 4, I want 5 on this. I like odd numbers. And I want down here closer to the center, kind of leading the eye down into it. And this one has some over here. Okay, we'll work with that for now. You could always add more later if that's what you decide. I'm also going to put in, this has like pollen that's fallen down in there, so in my picture. So I'm going to get some Wicker White and using the same, well, maybe I won't. Maybe I'll use a smaller, or I'll just use a much lighter touch. Could also use a liner brush. I'll show you how I do it with a liner brush. Here is a liner. Here's a fine liner. And I load it in the paint. And that's it. You got to use a very fine touch. It's mostly towards the center in my picture. So some of the stamens will go over this, and that's okay. I'm looking at my picture and at my other painting at what effect I liked. Real fine. All right, that's good. So I'll clean out my brush, set it aside, and I think I'm ready to put in the stamens. So I'm going to do that with my number 12 flat. I could do it with my 3/4, but I'm going to go ahead with the number 12 to make sure I keep the lines fine enough. And the stamens are not going to be stark white. I think I'm going to use like a parchment or linen color. Do I want parchment or linen? Maybe I'll go with linen. And it's going to be double loaded with the white, so you're going to get a little bit of like a cast shadow with it. So here is the Wicker White, and there's the linen or parchment. Which one did I use? They're both so close. I used linen. They're pretty close to each other, and I'm just going to double load my brush with the two colors. And I'm going to make sure I have a nice chisel edge. And I'm going to look at where the stamens start. Like one starts right here, and I want a point to come to. So I need to kind of give myself a point right there to come to. And I'm going to start right here and press to that point. Now it doesn't really show up right there, but that's all right. If you want to make it a little bit thicker, which it could be a little bit thicker, you just go back over it. Hopefully I'm not getting my head in here. Try to stabilize your finger there. And then there's another one that kind of comes in like that. And my thing is, my brush did not hold the chisel edge, so I need to make sure I'm getting the chisel. If you want to do this with a liner, you can. And one is coming from here. I think I'll go this way and try it. Kind of lost it. I'm trying to be very light-handed. Now I want them all to come from this point. So I need to pay attention to what I'm doing. And this one is kind of the same as that one. And there's one that goes straight up, but it's kind of hidden by the very center stamen. And that's way too thick. But the center stamen, which has like a little bowl on it, goes up to that one too. So, and then I'll just have this like here for the one that goes behind that one. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stamens on it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I had 6 in my other one. I wonder why I did 6. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, there is 6. I thought, because most of them, they usually have 6. So I have 5. 1, 2, 3. Oh, and one is short. Right here towards the center. Right there. Okay, there's our 6 stamens. Like I said, if you wanted to make sure you made them thinner, you could use the liner brush. I'm not too worried about it. If I wanted to come in and go over it with some orange and redo them, I could, but we're all good. Because it's not, I don't go for realism. I know I say this every single time. I go for an effect. And now we will go in and put the tops of the stamen. Now this one right here has like a little nubby top. And it's almost, or I shouldn't say almost, in my photograph, it's kind of an orange. So I'm going to just kind of put that in there. That right there. And then I'm going to get a burnt umber so I can do the little pods. I will show you how you can fix it if you like. Now you can go in with a dampened brush, clean dampened brush, and lift that paint. Since the background is dry, as long as you're careful, you can fix your error. You want this to have a little more of a split? You can. I'm going in with a dry Q-tip and lifting what I did there. So that is how you can fix some mistakes. I'm going to rinse my brush, get it really clean, and continue to work it until I'm happy with the width of that. So you just kind of, that's getting a little full of the paint. It's lifting, so I got to go in and dry it. And there, I like it that a little bit narrower. And you see how this has a split top? The same thing. I'm going to go in and I'll just take out this extra one. Might take it a minute to redampen the paint, but since the bottom has dried overnight, it lets me do this without lifting the orange. Now if I kept at it, it would lift the orange until it's cured. So also you can come in with a dampened Q-tip to do that, but the paintbrush gives you just a little bit more delicate control. So either way, so that is how you fix your mistakes with acrylics, or an area that you want to get maybe a little finer in size, like for lines. Or so I'm going to pull that one up too. I'm getting a little aggressive with it, so okay, that's good for me. So now, like I said, I'm going to go in and we're going to do the stamens. Now you can use the corner, and I will, of your number 12 flat. If you need to use a smaller brush, you can. So let's go in and I'm going to do the stamens here. So here's the corner. I'm going to make sure I have just the right amount of paint. And these are kind of long, a little bit fatter than the stamen. They're kind of oval shaped. I'm getting them pointy, so I'm going to turn my brush over, give it a little, needs to be a little bit bigger. Keep reloading my brush. Should have started over here because I can get my hand in that paint. Nope, got a lot of paint on that one. Oh, I forgot one. The one that kind of is hiding here. I'm getting too much on the other corner, so there I need to wipe it and do this. So I actually need to widen them a little bit. Looking at my picture, these are just much too small. So I need to make them bigger. It's easier to go in and make them bigger than it is to make them smaller if you get them too large to begin with. Again, we're not striving for perfection, just an effect. Yeah, that one's good. Okay, we've got them done. That center one probably needs a bit more oomph. Okay. Now, again, take a step back, look, and we're good. So there are our stamens, and I think that's pretty nice and dry. And I'm going to come in and I'm going to do, now this doesn't really show in the picture, but I want to kind of seat that stamens down in here. And I took, this is the vivid orange, and I'm just going to kind of give it a little C stroke there to kind of sit it down in there. That where those stamens are coming from. So we're all good. We're good with that. And I am going to now, that's still a little wet. I'm going to start on the background. I'm going to get my colors out of my palette. Stepping back and looking at this, I think it just needs some more freckles. It's just not got plenty for me. And it's not hard to add a few more. It just seemed like they were gapped too much. So let's, okay, I think that's a little bit better. I'm looking at it with a critical eye. There's something not quite right. I think this needs a little more shadowing along here where it falls underneath this petal. And we'll start on the background and then we'll look and see what else it may need. And we can fix it then. Okay, let me get the colors on the palette.